Thank you, everyone, for coming to Club E St. Paul. Typically third Wednesday, but next month for November, December, we are going to move to second Wednesday for the holidays. So I just like to announce some of the upcoming events before we get started. Our next event at the Minneapolis Club is October 30th. Rick Brimacombe is the founder of Club E, and he hosts every, he does two to three times? A month? Yeah. So typically first Thursday and then a couple other times as well in the month, and it's going to be on exit strategies. Then November 8th, which is actually a Friday instead of his typical Thursday, is Graceful Exits, Creating a Successful ESOP. And then back here, November 12th in St. Paul, we have Innovate Like Billionaires. Our luncheons are supported by sponsors, so I want to make sure that I acknowledge and thank them. The University Club, Boulay CPAs, and we actually have Brian here from Boulay. It's a regional accounting and consulting firm. The Irish Titan, an e-commerce digital agency, Winthrop and Weinstein, and my company, Legal Shield. And I'm so excited to meet or to welcome our next speaker, and she actually is also a Woodbury resident, and we had a lot of things in common, so I was really excited someone introduced me to her, and I'm so excited to welcome Suzanne Murphy. She's going to tell us I asked her to tell us a little bit about herself instead of me doing the introduction. So
I think you do a fine job. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you this morning? Usually, people can hear me without a microphone. Is that the case in the back? Gentlemen, is that okay with you? I know I'm not supposed to acknowledge you, and now I've just ruined your whole thing. Okay. Well, thank you for being here today. I'm Suzanne Murphy. I'm the president and founder of Abeo Consulting. And Abeo means change in Latin, and that's what I do. I help leaders and teams transition through change. I have spent my entire career in the human resources industry. I have focused primarily in training and organizational development. And the past 10 years of my career, I've done a lot of work in leadership development. I was in-house at Anderson Windows for a good portion of that time, leading their leadership development efforts, and then decided it was time to go back and do this again. So a few of you heard my introduction while I was setting things up, but I started Abeo in 2006. Okay, I'm going to quiz you now. So what was I saying? No. I started in 2006. I also had a couple other changes going on in my life at that same time. I decided to get married and have children. So in like a 3-year time period, I started a business, I got married, I had 2 kids. You're going to hear me say a little bit later that everyone has that max that they can handle with change. That was it for me. So I was also, Anderson Windows was one of my clients at that time. And their manager of training said, hey, I have a position open on my team. Do you know anyone that's looking? And I went, I think I am. And he's like, what, really? You're running your own business? And I said, yeah, and I'm also trying to figure out how to be a new mother and how to be a wife. And I think I just want to go work for a company again for a while. And so I did. I put Abeo on the shelf. And the intention was to come back out when the girls got into school. Well, it was 10 years later. And if you know anyone that has worked at Anderson Windows, you know its legacy, you know its culture, you know it's an amazing company. And I could have easily been a lifer there, but I really wanted to go back out and do this work on my own. So January of last year, I refounded my consultancy. I'm back out in the gig economy, trying to figure this out, and it was the best decision for me. So timing was much better this time. So enough about me. I want to know a couple of things about you. How many of you are your business owners yourselves? You're here representing your own company. And how many of you have more than one company? Because I've learned to ask that question amongst all of the gig people. Okay, good. I just have one. I'm sticking to one right now. And how many of you are in-house in organizations but are leaders of people? Lead your function, your team? Okay, and for those leaders in-house, how many people are on your teams? How many people do you manage? 2? So we have small groups. Do we have like hundreds? Like I oversee a function of 400 people? So we're on the smaller side. Okay, good. Good. Well, you're in luck because today is all about you. We're going to be talking about the differences between change and transition, what that means inside a large organization or a small organization, and we're going to talk about your role as a leader in navigating yourself through that change, as well as the people that work for you or work around you. The important part that I want you to take away, and that I think you'll spend some time thinking about here, but hopefully you'll continue that after your time here with us, is focusing on the things that you can control during times of change and the things that you can't. And there's some magic in knowing the difference between those and being able to let go of those things you can't control. But it takes practice. And we're going to get you in our whole 45 minutes here today, we're going to get you started in that direction for yourself. This is a learning session. This isn't just about me presenting ideas and topics on change and transition. There's going to be some activities. You're going to be involved. This is about you and your role as a leader. Remember I said I'm a trainer. I mean, this is what I do. I'm not just going to stand and talk to you about things. You're going to get actively involved in this. So keep chewing. I'm trying to stall for those last few people that are still chewing so you can participate fully. When I was preparing for today, and any time that I go to speak in front of a group, I try and think about the audience that's going to be there and where they come from and what they do, and I try and tailor my message to that group. And I thought, okay, well, we're talking about change and the rate of change and how it's accelerating, so I'm going to go do a bunch of research on just that and wow you with all these facts and figures on how the rate of change is only increasing and what that means. And so I started my search, and then I went, you know, the people that are here, that are coming to the Club E events, they already know that. You're experiencing this every day. There are multiple changes going on in your business, in your professional, in your personal lives. So instead of me trying to convince you that that's coming and happening, I stopped and went, all right, these people already know that. So I want to hear from you. What are some of those changes that are going on in your business, in your personal lives? What are things that are going on in your lives today that are giving you some challenges when it comes to change? Anything. Shout it out.
Social media.
Social media. How it affects your business, how it affects your kids, your family. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, say that again.
Cell phones.
Cell phones. Anybody still have a flip phone?
Transition with the
Kids, what stage in life are the kids in? School, oh yes. My past month has been a lot of school time, a lot of focus on school. Starting a business? Transitioning your business? Automation? Regulation? Those seem to change like by the minute. Hiring, that means you lost some employees, or you were growing and you needed new employees. So there's some more change. Anyone getting married? Have children getting married? Anyone sending children off to college? Mm-hmm. Anyone? Oh, that's a good. We don't want to ask too many questions you might not want to answer yet. We'll just leave it at that. So I asked the personal side of questions because we all know that you can't separate who you are in a business world, in your business life and your profession, with who you are as a person. And I've seen too many people in the course of my career attempt to do that and fail. And I would include myself in that early in my career. I really tried to have those things separate. That didn't work out well. So I have a quote up there by John Cotter, who it really, to me, says what we're talking about today. And that is that the change that you're going through is not really the purpose of what we're talking about. We're talking about you and your role as a leader in that change. So when I said today is about you, it really is. So we're going to examine some concepts. We're going to talk about a couple of activities. We're going to give you a pathway to outline your own way to transition through any change that's happening in your life. Bless you. Okay. You have a handout in front of you. You have a handout, and now's a good time to pull that forward. We're going to do some activities. You're going to take some notes. We're going to get you ready. So let's set the stage a little bit for this conversation about you. On any given day, you may start your workday like this gentleman. Happy, content, feeling relaxed. Maybe you just solved a big problem in your business, in your personal life, a challenge, a change that you were experiencing has ended, and you're feeling really good about it. And then this happens. Another change hits. It's either something else at work, it's something else at home, but you're not ready for it. It's surprising. Everything that we're talking about today is about how you handle those situations and the difference between thinking about the situation at hand and how you internally transition or move through that change. So ideally, we don't want to be the guy in the lower right all the time, because what does that bring in our life? Stress, anxiety, dissatisfaction at work, disengagement of our employees. And when you show up like the guy on the right, people see that. Your employees, your family. So we're going to strive to be the guy on the left, even though we can't always be that person. But hopefully the tools and the tactics that we'll talk about today will help you stay in that upper left-hand quadrant. So let's begin with an activity that's designed to help you identify a little bit about how you handle change. So this is where you're going to get active, okay? I would like for you to find a partner. And if there is an uneven amount of people, because I didn't do a quick count, then one lucky person is going to get to observe another set of partners, okay? So everyone's like, ooh, I want to be that person. So find yourself a partner, and you're going to stand, and you're going to be within a comfortable distance facing that partner. So you want a little bit of space. You can spread out around the room a little bit. So go ahead and do that. Find a partner and get comfortable. All right, do I have one group of three? Who's the lucky observer back here? Nice. And you can observe anybody. You can make everyone feel uncomfortable if you'd like. That's fine. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a little activity regarding change. And we're going to start with 1 minute of silence. So you're going to politely look at your partner. And for 1 minute, without talking, you are going to observe their appearance. 1 minute, starting now. Okay, now stay where you are. I'm going to ask that you turn around, and now you're going to stand back to your partner. You don't have to be physically touching one another, but just turn around so you're back to back and not looking at your partner. Now, very quietly and covertly, make 3 changes to your physical appearance. 3 changes to your physical appearance. Now, I think you can guess what I'm going to ask you to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. You're going to turn around, and you're going to tell your partner what they changed. I would normally let this debrief go on for quite some time, but we have to make it quick. So, now, the next step in this activity is you're going to turn back to back again. Back to back again. Everyone's really sorry they signed up for this lunch today, aren't they? And you're going to make 3 more changes. Now, don't change back the 3 that you already changed. No, you can't change those back. You have to leave those. So then you'll have a total of 6 changes. 6 changes.
Should have worn a button-down blouse
You
today.
should have told tell people to wear a lot of stuff.
Right.
3 more changes for a total of 6. When you've made all of your 6, I'll let you turn around and debrief with your partner at your own cadence. So when you have 6, turn around and start talking again. I know some of you are still trying to figure out your 6. I know you're still trying to figure out. Who's ready to make 3 more changes? Oh, you're so lucky you're not actually in my workshop, because you'd have to do another round, but frankly, we're out of time for that. So I won't make you do another round, but how did that feel? When you first turned around, made those changes, we're looking at one another, how did that feel? You're a little out of your comfort zone. A little weird, a little awkward. Okay, so I have some questions for you. Well, first of all, I know you all want to just put all your stuff back and sit down, don't you? So do that. Go ahead, do that. Put your things back and sit down. So when I first asked you to be quiet and observe your partner, you said that felt a little awkward and uncomfortable. Why was doing that a problem?
Where we were just staring at each other.
Yeah.
Because staring at people is uncomfortable
It's uncomfortable.
without talking.
Mm-hmm. It's impolite. We're breaking some social norms.
It can also feel very intimate,
Yes.
intimate than you might want to be in.
More intimate than the person you just met at a networking lunch feels that they should have, yes. So you feel a little foolish and awkward, and that really goes to illustrate how we feel in times of change. That when a change occurs in our life, we can experience that awkward feeling, that foolishness at times. That's a natural event. What would have helped to reduce the awkwardness?
Being able to talk.
Distance.
Little distance. Definitely communicating.
Having an idea what's next.
Yeah, knowing what's coming. Do you see where I'm going with these questions? Yeah, communicating during times of change, especially on large organizational changes, hugely important. The fear of the unknown, knowing what's coming next. We all, when we're going through a change, want to know what the next thing is, and oftentimes we don't. Back to that feeling of foolishness and awkwardness. How many of you began to change things back right after the first round? Like before I even said it, did you have this initial, like, I got to put it back? Yeah. So why do you think you felt that way? What were you feeling when you're like, now I'm going to put it back? Would that make you feel complete, normal, comfortable? Get back to the comfort zone. So we want to revert, when we're experiencing change, we want to revert back to those things that we know and we're comfortable with. And then, did anyone, I saw one person did it, did anyone use any other kind of props or other things that were off of their own person in this event? I'm walking over here to Melinda because I saw her do that. Because she says very sparse attire today, so this was a horrible day for this activity. So what did you do? You went and you grabbed things.
Also grabbed a napkin, a couple pens.
Yeah, we were running out of things, yeah. So the analogy here is that that's like grabbing, going to tools and resources that you have at your disposal during times of change. But most of us don't use those things. You did, maybe a couple of others did, and I never said that you couldn't use things around you. I said change things on your person, but I didn't say, and don't touch anything else in the room. So some of you were crafty enough to think of the tools and the resources that you could use in change. Oftentimes we don't. Most times we don't. Okay, so I hope that little activity gave you some insight into how you handle changes in your life. And I hope a couple of things were clicking in your mind about experiences that you've had and how that may have lined up to how you acted in that particular activity. So let's go through some basics about change. Change versus transition. Change is the new thing. Change is the thing that happens to you. If any of you have read anything by William Bridges, this is his stuff. This is tried and true, good, solid change theory. It's the external situation. It's what's going on around you. It has a beginning and it has an end. It has a start and it has a stop. The transition is what goes on in your head, the internal reorientation that you have about your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions with that change. It can go on and on and on until you've accepted that change as the new norm. So let's give you an easy example. A software application is introduced at your company. I'm sure we've all experienced this. And we know the people that are like, yes, we're getting a new application. This is awesome. I'm so excited. I want to train people. I want to learn about it. I want to get this going. It's going to be more efficient. And then I can see by the look on your face, you're not that person because you are that person? I thought you were thinking of that person going, oh, Lord, that person. And then there's those people that are like, really? Didn't we just get the other one? It's fine. What we have is fine. We don't need this. It's okay. And we might even work with those people that go, hey, guess what? You know what? IT just loaded the new software on my laptop, but guess what I did? I didn't delete the old one. I still have it. I'm going to still use it. Don't tell anybody. I think it's going to be fine, though. They won't know. Right? So in that situation, the change is what? The new application. That's the change. It has a beginning. We're starting the implementation on January 1, and it's going to be fully implemented. Everyone's going to have this new application by May 1st. Beginning and an end. Now, all of those people that started getting their application come January 1st, on May 1st, are they done with their transition of this application? They've got it on their laptop, but they're not done because there's still some people going, hey, don't tell IT, I'm still using the old one. That's the transition piece. And until the person that still has the old application, until they give it up, they are not readily accepting that change. And it's not going to be a positive experience in their life. They're still holding on to the old. And that time frame is different for every person. The time frame itself depends on so many different factors with that individual. Now, you as leaders, because that's what we're talking about today, as business owners, as leaders in your company, your responsibility is to understand where your employees are in that application implementation. Are they still transitioning? Have they fully accepted the change? What do they think about it? What help do they need from you? Change versus transition. People interchange those or think they're the same thing or talk about change like it's the transition. So when you remember that the change is the thing, the beginning and the end, then you can focus your energies on how you are internally reorienting your life and your viewpoint around this change, because the change is still going to happen. You can't stop it. It's still coming. All right. More basics. Old, good, tried and true, 1-minute manager, Ken Blanchard stuff. This stuff does not change. It does not change. This is true. And we just experienced this in the activity we did. We feel awkward and self-conscious and ill at ease when there is a change. Not always, but we can expect that one or more of these dynamics are going to be our experience. We think first about what we have to give up. What am I going to lose as a result of this? Oh, I don't get to use this application anymore. I loved this version. It's fine. I don't want to do anything different. We feel alone even if everyone else is going through the same change. When you did the activity, you were all going through the same thing. You may have been talking to the partner you were working with, but I didn't see anybody else going over to other partners and going, how is this working for you? Can I help you at all? This is terrible. I can't believe she's making us do this at lunch. You weren't talking to one another. We feel lonely even though we're going through the same thing together. We can only handle so much change. When I went back and got a job, gave up the consultant life, that for me in my life was so much change. New business, new husband, new kids. Oh, we bought a new house too. I left that part out. That's when we moved to Woodbury. Yeah, I was done. I needed to go back to what I was comfortable with, and that was being an in-house learning and development practitioner. Different levels of readiness. We all experience this differently. I'm usually the cheerleader, but not always. We're concerned that we won't have enough resources. You had to go for your purse. You had to go for other things. You didn't have enough. And when the pressure's off, we revert back to our old behavior. You really wanted to put everything back where it was because it was comfortable. You don't want to give up that software application that you feel like you're an expert in because it saves you time and you're comfortable with that. So I know that's a pretty benign example, but you can start to think, and I see the look on a few of your faces, you're thinking of bigger changes in your lives and things that are going on and how these apply. And it's true for all of us. That was also on page 1 in your handout. I forgot to mention that if you didn't see it. Also in your handout, page 2 is the next thing I want to point out. This is a real bummer of a slide, but it's really valuable information. So as leaders, this information is extremely helpful when you're guiding your employees through a change, when you're transitioning yourself through a change, when your family is experiencing something and you have to communicate that message, understanding where everyone is, because everyone experiences a loss with change. And I have seen, every time I've put this in front of someone, either in training or in my coaching practice, when we talk about this, inevitably leaders are like, oh, you mean to tell me that I might be experiencing 1 and 8, but my employees might be experiencing 3 and 4. Oh, I need to know that about them, don't I? Yes, you do. Because that's the only way that you can help them with the roles that leaders hold on to during change, which we'll look at next. So, for example, you lose your job to a downsizing, let's say. You may feel a loss of job security. I think that's number 1. I'm going to look at it while we're talking. Yeah. Let's say a change in your life is that, because that would be a negative one. We're usually never happy when we lose our jobs. But maybe you got a promotion and you move to a different city to take this promotion. Maybe you feel a loss of, number 6, social connection. Because your whole professional network that you had in the Twin Cities, well now if you're moving to Denver, you don't have that same social connection. And you're feeling the loss of that support and that network. Positive change, welcome change, exciting, but you can still experience the perceived losses even in a change that's welcome or exciting. This gets at the heart of that emotional piece of your transition. And yes, I know I just said the E word, emotions. This is a big part of the transition. It is the transition. It is about how we are emotionally handling the change. And when you can identify these for yourself, it's like you just put that key in the lock and went click, and the door slides open. And you go, oh, now I know what to focus my energy on. Because a lot of us spend our time focusing our energy on stopping the change. I don't want this new application. I'm going to hang on to the old one, and I'm just not going to tell anybody about it. Well, I'm sorry, worker, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life there because you're going to have the cheerleaders on your team going, I love this new application, and oh, you can't get that report in the old one? Oh, too bad. I mean, that's going to constantly be there. So identify, why don't you want to give up this application? What do you feel like you're losing? And then work with that. And I'm talking to you as an employee there, as an individual there, but if you're the leader and you see that on your team, it's your responsibility to get this out and to talk to people about it, to talk about their emotions. I know not everybody wants to do that, but we're all humans and we bring all of that to work. So invaluable piece of information, and let me see how much time I have. Oh, we have just enough time to do it. It's so exciting. Okay, so another activity. Page 3 and 4. To get you really thinking about the perceived losses, because this is an important concept. On page 3, you're going to do a brief read of a situation, a case study that may or may not be any organization I've worked with or known, or all of them actually, about an organizational restructure. And then on the next page, you're going to meet Oscar, the operations manager in this situation. And I'd like for you to read that. And then I'd like for you to just quickly at your tables address the 2 questions at the top of page 4 on Oscar. And I'm going to give you a whopping 4 minutes to do that. So just touch on it. All right, I'm going to pull you back together. I know you want to talk more about it. I've heard a few good ideas already. What were some of the perceived losses that you talked about Oscar is experiencing in this change? What were some of the losses you came up with, you identified for him?
Social connections,
He's losing his social connections. Why'd you pick that one?
moving to a new place,
Moving to a new place, absolutely. What else?
control over one's future,
Really unknown. You take a new job, sounds exciting. You don't know if it's really going to work or not. And he's moving his whole family. What's going on that side of the house there? How's the family doing? Pretty stressed. What's another perceived loss that you picked? We had social connections, and I'm sorry, I just blanked on what you, control. Anything different from those?
anything that had to do with taking on a staff that's going to be very difficult to manage right now. They may see him as not confident, they may see him as not trustworthy, they don't know him yet.
Absolutely.
He's got to start over.
That whole trust building with a brand new team. He's the new guy. Even though he's been with somebody else, been at the company somewhere else, fine, but he's new there at that facility. I purposefully crafted a picture of Oscar's home life for you to think about, to simply illustrate to you, again, as leaders, the impact that an organizational change such as that one has on the family and personal life of your employees. And it's not just when people move. He could have not moved and maybe his wife didn't think he should take the job because, oh, you're going to work so much more or whatever. So there's always a process, the transition process that's going on that is a personal element, not just accepting the new job, not just thinking about how the new team is going to form with him. It's that and. And the companies that I've worked at and for through the course of my career that get that treat their employees like humans, that help them through these kinds of losses when they're experiencing change are the ones that in the end are the most successful. And I think you've probably all been there or not. Okay, I only have a few minutes, but there's a couple of other things I want to point out. And these are in your guide too, with some extra questions and help for you. Role of the change leader. This comes from ProSci work on organizational change. And I like to put this in front of folks for the questions that I have in your guide. And what I want you to take away from this is that in times of change, you as a leader are required to operate in each one of these roles for different people at different times. So back to our software application person who didn't want to give up her application. You might need to be the resistance manager for her. You might need to have a plan in place for those people that aren't going to remove their old software. How are we as a company going to handle that? You might need to be a coach at times. You might need to be their advocate. You're always going to be the communicator, but your message might need to be different to different people at different times. So these are all the different roles you can play, and the questions that I have in the handout for you are questions that you can ask yourself to identify when you should be playing that role and the kinds of things you should mentally prepare yourself for when you have to. And then the other thing I'm giving to you to take away is this easy 4-step process for navigating change. I mean, isn't everything in an easy 4-step process? I don't mean to belittle everything that we were talking about, but you can kind of think about this in 4 different steps. And what I want you to do now, before you walk out and leave and forget the valuable things that you've been thinking about, is I want you on page, I think it's 6, to write down a change at the top of that page where it says describe the change. Write down a change that's going on in your life right now, personal or professional, I don't care. And then you're going to take this handout away and you're going to work through the questions for that change. Do it today, do it tomorrow, do it soon before you start to lose all of this. But you're going to describe the change. You're going to identify how you're handling the change, what you're experiencing, what your reactions are, what your perceived losses are with this change. You're going to look at what can you control and what can't you control. Oh, spend some time on this one is my advice. And be honest with yourself. And if you're stuck and you have a whole list of things that you can't control and nothing that you can, then talk to somebody else who's familiar with the change and get a different perspective, because you should have things in both. But spend some time here and get really honest with yourself about the things that you cannot change or control, the things you cannot control, and just let those things go. They are what they are. And then, to the extent that you're the action plan person, put a plan of action in place. If your plan of action is to keep coming back and revisiting what my perceived losses are, that's fine. If your plan of action is to talk to somebody else who's going through this change and understand how they're handling it, great. Doesn't have to be a 42-line detailed project plan on how to handle it. Just write down some things that you can do differently to help transition. So what you experienced today was a snippet of 2 different things. The handout that's on your page, that's on your table on navigating change is my full day workshop. So what you saw here was a couple of pieces throughout that day. It's also module 5 in my frontline leadership program. And what I ask of you is if you have a need in your organization, or if you know of anyone else that might be interested in something like this, that you think of me and you pass my name on. I'm right at my time, aren't I? I left no time for questions, but I will stick around. If you have something you want to talk through, talk about, I'm here.
I think we have time for one question, a couple minutes.
Ask me a question.
103.
If you have to go, don't feel like you have to sit here painstakingly through somebody else's question, because I know everyone thinks of that. They're like, oh, I really needed to go. So don't, it's not rude if you need to.
Yes. Okay, so you have one challenge, one change going on, kind of easy to isolate it and focus on it, but I think many of us experience multiple changes at the same time, and there's different degrees, and so it's kind of the fight on multiple fronts starts to get a little challenging. So what tips might you give for somebody who's got multiple things happening at the same time?
To the extent that you can break it apart, try and think of them in isolation, at least for a period. So that's where the 4-step process will help you, because you can zero in on, I have this change at work, there's some regulations that have been introduced and I have to plan for that and how we're going to communicate it and how it's going to change our work. Oh, and by the way, my kid is going off to college, and so while we're introducing these new regulation changes at work and I'm working 80 hours a week, I'm also trying to pack him up and move him away. So isolate them and think about them, because your losses with each change are different, and how you're going to transition through each one could be different even though they're happening simultaneously. And then bring them back together and recognize that they're happening simultaneously. Yeah. What else? Thank you very much.